If you look at a map of Seattle, Washington, it's hard to miss this strange urban oddity cutting across the city's mostly uniform grid pattern. This is Madison Street, and it's been around forever. It appears on the 1911 map, the 1907 map, and even as far back as the 1890 map, when the road served as a right-of-way for the Madison Street Cable Railway, and later as a streetcar right-of-way for the Seattle Electric Company. Madison Street's long and direct path was entirely intentional too, built as a direct multimodal travel route all the way from Elliott Bay to Lake Washington, spanning the entire width of the Seattle Isthmus. In similar fashion to Columbus Avenue in San Francisco, Madison Street's diagonal path through the city grid has culminated in some really unique triangular block and building structures, especially here at the intersection of Madison Street, Union Street, and 12th Avenue. This six-way intersection is one of the most storied urban forms in the city. Not a product of a coordinated city planning effort, but from decades of disjointed and unorganized platting during the city's most formative years. From the cable car, to the streetcar, to the private car, to its complete urbanist overhaul in the 2020s, this intersection has a lot to teach us about what works and what doesn't work when it comes to redesigning America's 150-year-old urban spaces. So after a decade of planning and $133 million spent, let me take you through what may just be the best intersection overhaul I've seen in recent years. There's a lot more to this place than meets the eye, and if you've never participated in a six-way before, you're in for a treat. But first, if you're new here, this is Fourth Place, your place to learn about US geography, urbanism, transportation, and city planning. The real catalyst of the road restructuring here wasn't actually a desire to improve pedestrian, cyclist, or even car traffic. The project was actually centered around a planned expansion of the Seattle bus rapid transit system called Rapid Ride, specifically the addition of the new G line. A new BRT line on Madison Street was initially conceived as a part of Seattle's 20-year transit master plan that the city adopted back in 2012. For like a solid decade, Seattle's planners have been hard at work planning and implementing a plethora of new, high-capacity, multimodal transit corridors. Throughout the 2000s and 2010s, the city reintroduced streetcar lines, constructed hundreds of miles of protected, separated, and buffered bike lanes, and created a mostly frequent bus rapid transit system entirely from scratch. Seattle's always seen Madison Street as a priority high-capacity transit corridor, as it serves a variety of functions throughout the many neighborhoods it passes through. It's an arterial road through downtown, an urban mixed-use corridor through First Hill and Capitol Hill, a commercial collector through the Madison Valley neighborhood, and even as a main street through Madison Park. But its purpose is especially important where it meets the six-way, acting as a major transitory pinch point between two of the city's most popular, high-density urban core neighborhoods. Here in First Hill, Madison acts as the northern boundary for Seattle University. Not a large school, but still a major Division I institution with about 7,000 students and 700 faculty. The university is bordered by the Swedish Hill Medical Campus, a huge dozen-block complex crawling with density, doctors, and nurses mere feet from the intersection. And here in Capitol Hill, one of the busiest areas in the city for pedestrian and cyclist traffic, Madison Street acts as the southern border. The First Hill and Capitol Hill neighborhoods are some of the demographically youngest, most bike-friendly neighborhoods in the city, so planning for pedestrians and cyclists here would be crucial during the reconstruction of the six-way and the implementation of the new G line. After 7 years of the city fine-tuning draft after draft, taking in a ton of community feedback, and standing firm on its goals to improve the space for pedestrians and cyclists, Seattle finally landed on a working design for the refreshed intersection in 2020. So, while the roads were empty, well, mostly empty, construction began on the long-anticipated BRT project. But this wasn't just a transit project. Along with all the surface-level redevelopment, a few of the city's utility departments joined in on the fun and began working underground in order to replace some of Seattle's oldest water mains, sewer lines, and electrical conduits, most of which dated back to the late 1800s. For over 3 years, significant portions of the intersection were rebuilt with new concrete and asphalt surfaces. Inside the six-way, the city added dedicated center-running bus lanes and a boarding station, and shortened pedestrian crossings by expanding sidewalks and implementing new pedestrian islands. In September of 2024, Rapid Ride's G line opened to urbanist fanfare and a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The BRT line itself has 21 stops along Madison Street, running a mixed traffic model for about a quarter of its length and dedicated bus lanes along the other 75%. About half of the dedicated bus lanes are center running with center stations, and the other half are right side running with sidewalk stations. The city even added something they're calling enhanced crossings, which in many cases take the form of these barriers that block off cross-turning traffic for cars, which is pretty great news for pedestrians and cyclists. It's abundantly clear that the city has used this project to make car-free multimodal travel not only easy, but attractive. Because if you actually want people to ride your public transit, it needs to be both of those things, and a lot more. Funnily enough, as the drafts for the BRT station began rolling out throughout the mid-2010s, some locals were concerned about the city's approach to bike safety along the Union Street part of the intersection. Let's get one thing straight, this intersection was never the safest place for cyclists. Thankfully, Seattle knew that, and quickly adapted, effectively making the intersection something of a multimodal buffer zone. Planners extended the sidewalk, not just for pedestrian safety and comfort, but to form these multi-use traffic islands. For cycling safety, these things are a 3-in-1. First, they deliver organized, brightly covered route markings for bike riders to easily be able to identify their ideal path, regardless of which direction they approach the intersection from. They also importantly provide protection for cyclists, whether waiting for the bike signal to turn green or even as they're actively traversing the right-of-way itself. And best of all, the traffic islands allow for multi-directional cycling traffic, crucial for an area with such population density and so many bikes. And it's not just the intersection itself that saw improvements either. Along Union Street, buffered bike lanes have been added on either side of the road, on both ends of the intersection, and around King County's Bus Route 2 boarding island. So whether you're traveling east or westbound on Union through the 6-way, you're seeing newer, better, safer bike routes here than ever before. And the same goes for 12th Avenue with its new separated and dedicated bike lanes. South of the intersection, 12th Avenue is currently seeing some infill redevelopment going on, with the addition of a new academic building replacing previous parking and warehouse space. So the bike infrastructure is a little discombobulated over there as of now, but it eventually recovers further down the road. And I think it's mostly okay that the city hasn't yet figured out a way to build bike lanes on Madison Street through the intersection, simply because the removal of car lanes in favor of bus lanes has freed up a lot of space for cyclists as a sort of buffered mixed traffic lane when there aren't any buses actively using them. It's astonishing to see how much space the project was able to give back to pedestrians, cyclists, and the BRT with the removal of private car lanes. It's a huge win whenever a city is able to expand the sphere of mobility for public usage. But to do it in such a historically auto-centric intersection is particularly awesome. I know I briefly touched on the cable and streetcars at the beginning of the video, but ever since the 1920s, cars have completely dominated the traffic flow here. I haven't yet talked much about the built environment, and I really think it's important in tying everything together. Specifically, I want to talk about this small triangular block situated right behind the BRT station. Thanks to a cultural resource assessment done for the purposes of this project, there's actually a ton of information on the history of it. The first building built here was in 1902 and was aptly named the Triangle Building, housing a number of commercial retailers. That was until 1926, when the building was demolished in order to build a small service station, which was again demolished in 1941 in order to build the structure that currently stands here. Originally built as a Texaco gas station, this building has been adaptively reused countless times. It was a dry cleaners in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, a florist in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and finally, as of 2010, is the neighborhood's Pony Bar. It's just another interesting piece of gas station adaptive reuse, and a particularly old one at that. In fact, a lot of the surviving buildings facing the 6-way have car-centric origins. This building here at 1400 12th Street was built in 1919 as an automotive equipment warehouse for the Chancellor and Lyon Company. But in 2007, it was retrofitted into mixed-use residential lofts, now housing a modern speakeasy, a pet groomers, a bar A studio, and Mighty O Donuts. The building at 1125 12th Avenue was built in 1909 as a moving and storage building for the Beckons Company, one of the oldest moving companies still in existence in the US today, and it's still being used as a storage facility even in the present day, though it's also been given a secondary use as Seattle University's campus store. There's a surprising lack of information about the Six Ways Vanderbilt building, but it's believed to have been built in the 1920s as a distribution warehouse for the Scripps Booth Automotive Company. In the early 2000s, a ghost advertisement sign remained, with the words "Good Used Cars" on it, but has since been completely painted over, and upon completion of the new attached Seattle Academy building, it'll be lost to time forever. One remaining building, though, is still holding on to its auto shop origins to this day, and that's this place at 1401 12th Avenue. It was originally built in 1913 as a dealership for the William T. Patton Motor Company and has served the same purpose for over 113 years, evolving into a present-day exotic car dealership. While almost all of the auto shops near the Six-Way have since closed, I kinda accidentally went down a rabbit hole and found out that all of the motor companies here actually used to play in a bowling league together, formed during the late 1910s, called the Gasoline Alley Bowling League. Yeah, really. Turns out that this part of the city was once known as Auto Row, and it just goes to show how much the automotive industry dominated the urban fabric here for so long. Time after time, the city of Seattle just seems to be nailing its urban core multimodal projects, especially when it comes to building new cycling and pedestrian infrastructure in former lands of Autopia. From the new multi-use Elliott Bay Trail along Alaskan Way, to the Lake Union hike and bike loop, to the new infrastructure right here at the intersection of Union, 12th, and Madison, Seattle is kinda killing it. Now, if they could just figure out a Ballard, Fremont, Wallingford streetcar loop, it might be enough for me to finally make the move up to the Pacific Northwest. Who am I kidding though? I would move there today if I could. For now, I'm unfortunately stuck in my car-centric hellscape that refuses to change. Hopefully not for much longer though. Leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed the video today, and be sure to check out my new social media links in the description down below. I'll see you next week, right here, from 4th Place.